Ever walk into a store and feel like, like they're kind of playing you a little?
Oh, you're
like they're trying to manipulate you somehow.
Absolutely.
Today, we're going to be diving into those subtle forces
Yes.
that can shape our choices.
Yeah.
I think this will be a fun one today.
I'm excited.
Because we've got some fascinating research from a Wharton marketing professor.
Okay.
And then this really cool Medium article.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll be talking all about how our brains
Yes.
and our environment
For sure.
can kind of trick us into making decisions that maybe we don't even want.
It's like playing a game that we don't know the rules of.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like,
right.
today we're going to try to figure out what are those rules of the game.
Uncover those rules.
Exactly. So that maybe we can be a little bit more in control.
Yes.
So let's start with this Wharton professor's research.
Okay.
Which focuses on something I think probably all of us experience all the time.
Yeah.
The grocery store.
Yeah.
Now, you wouldn't think that music would have that big of an impact on us.
Yeah.
But, when you think about it, it's one of the most powerful tools that they use.
Absolutely. And it all comes down to tempo.
Yeah.
Think about the last time you were at the grocery store and, they were playing some upbeat, fast music.
Oh, yeah.
Chances are you probably moved through the aisles more quickly and maybe even picked up a couple of extra items that you weren't really planning on getting.
That's so true.
Right.
I feel like I'm rushing through the store.
Yes.
When they're blasting like pop music.
Exactly. And that's kind of the point.
Really?
That's the intended effect, because that faster music, it creates a sense of urgency, and then that leads to more impulsive buys.
Oh, so they're like using it to manipulate us.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
But then on the other hand, if they play slower music,
Okay.
more mellow music, then it actually encourages the shoppers to kind of linger and browse around a little bit more thoughtfully.
Okay.
And then ultimately make more deliberate choices.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So it's all about like the tempo.
Exactly. The tempo, and some stores even strategically use slower tempos in high margin sections.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like the wine aisle, to encourage those customers to spend a little bit more time and consider,
the higher price.
the fancier bottles. Yeah.
So they really are trying to use the music.
Yes, they're very deliberate about the music they choose.
So it's like they're conducting a symphony.
Yes.
The shopping behaviors.
They are the grocery store symphony.
Using the music to try to orchestrate our every move.
It's like a carefully crafted playlist for consumerism.
Oh my gosh, that is wild. But the article points out that the music is only one piece of this whole retail manipulation game.
Absolutely. It's a multi-sensory experience.
Whoa.
Like shelf placement is another key tactic.
Okay.
Like you probably noticed that, the more premium brands, they're often at eye level. Yeah.
While the, generic or less profitable items are down at the bottom shelves.
Where you don't see them.
Exactly. Out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. It really is all about...
It's all about catching your eye at the right moment.
That's crazy.
It is. And then there's the whole, pricing anchors.
Yeah.
Where retailers might display a really expensive item next to a similar but slightly less expensive item.
Oh, yeah. So it makes it seem like a good deal.
Exactly. It makes it seem like a steal.
Oh, I've totally fallen for that before.
Yeah, it's a classic psychological tactic.
Wow.
That plays on our tendency to make relative judgments.
Right.
We automatically compare prices, even if those comparisons are not based on, objective value.
That makes sense.
So knowing this now, next time you see a sale price,
Yeah.
Ask yourself, is this a genuine discount? Or is it just a cleverly placed anchor designed to make me feel like I'm getting a bargain?
Wow. That's so interesting. I never even thought about it that way.
Yeah, it's all psychology.
It's amazing how these subtle tactics can have such a profound impact on how we spend money.
It really does, yeah.
But let's move from, these kind of external cues to what's going on inside our heads.
Okay.
The Medium article that we're looking at, it dives into the realm of what are called cognitive biases.
Yes.
Which are these kind of like mental shortcuts.
Right.
That often lead us astray.
Totally.
And one of the most, I think, common and kind of insidious ones is this what's called the sunk cost fallacy.
The sunk cost fallacy? Oh, it's a tricky one.
Have you heard of this one?
Oh, I know it all too well.
Yeah.
It's that feeling of being trapped in a bad decision simply because you've already invested so much time or money or effort into it.
Oh, totally. Like, I'm thinking about like that time. Yeah. I kept pouring money into fixing my old car.
Oh, yeah.
I should have just bought a new car.
Sometimes it's harder to let go.
Yeah. And you just keep thinking like, well,
Yeah.
I already put so much into it.
Exactly. I've already come this far.
I might as well keep going.
I know. I've been there.
Yeah.
The problem is that our brains have a hard time letting go of those past investments.
Okay.
Even when it's clear that continuing down that same path
Right.
is only going to lead to further losses.
Like throwing good money after bad.
Exactly. And think about companies that keep pouring resources into these failing projects.
Oh, yeah.
Just because they've already invested so much.
They just can't admit that it's a failure.
Right. They're trying to convince themselves that if they just invest a little more, they can salvage the situation.
Almost like a pride thing.
It is, yeah. There's ego involved.
Wow.
But what's interesting is that this sunk cost fallacy, it doesn't just apply to like financial investments.
Oh, really?
It can apply to relationships, careers, even our beliefs. Like we might cling to a relationship that's not working.
Because you've been in it for so long.
Exactly, because we've invested so many years.
Right.
Or, we refuse to change our mind about a political issue.
Even if we're presented with new information.
Even when presented with overwhelming evidence to the contrary.
Wow.
Right.
So it could apply to so many different areas.
It really can. Yeah, it can be quite pervasive.
Okay, so how do we then, break free from this grip of the sunk cost fallacy?
Well, I think the first step is awareness.
Okay.
Recognize that just because you've invested something in the past doesn't mean you're obligated to keep investing in the future.
Oh, okay.
Right? Ask yourself, if I were starting fresh today,
right,
knowing what I know now, would I make the same choice?
It's such a powerful question.
It is. It's a good one to ask yourself.
Because it helps you to separate those past investments from what's actually happening right now.
Exactly.
And it allows you to make a decision based on what's best for you right now, not...
Right. Not what happened in the past.
Not being stuck in the past.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've got that sunk cost bias weighing us down. But then there's another one.
Yeah.
The article highlights called anchoring bias.
Anchoring bias.
And this one's all about first impressions.
It is. It's the tendency for that first piece of information we receive to disproportionately influence our judgments and decisions.
Okay.
Even if that information is irrelevant.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Like, for example, you walk into a fancy boutique and you see a dress with a 4-figure price tag.
Okay, yeah.
Suddenly, everything else seems more reasonable.
Exactly.
Even if it's still overpriced.
Even if it's still way more than you would normally spend.
Right, but because you saw that first one?
Yeah, that first price.
It makes the others seem okay.
It acts as an anchor. It sets a reference point for everything else you see.
Okay.
And it's not just about prices either. Anchoring bias can influence our perceptions of, value, quality, and even our negotiations.
Wow.
Yeah, like, for instance, if you're negotiating a salary, that first offer that you receive can heavily influence your counteroffer, even if it's far below what you're worth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So basically, we need to be very careful about that first.
That first piece of information?
Yeah.
Because it can really skew our perception.
Of everything that follows.
Of everything that comes after.
So it seems like we're constantly being bombarded with these subtle cues and biases that are shaping our choices without us even knowing it.
Yeah, it's a bit unsettling.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of unsettling.
Isn't it? But the good news is that by becoming aware of these influences, we can start to develop strategies to mitigate their impact.
It's like we're learning to see the matrix.
Yes.
It's like decoding all those hidden messages
you got it.
that are being thrown at us.
Exactly. And once you start to see them, you can't unsee them.
Oh, that's true.
But that's a good thing.
Okay.
Because it means you're one step closer to making more conscious and intentional choices.
So we've covered the influence of our surroundings.
Yeah.
We've talked about a couple of these cognitive biases.
We've just scratched the surface.
Is there more?
Oh, there's a whole universe of unseen forces at play.
Really?
Shaping our perceptions, our beliefs, and ultimately our decisions.
Wow. So this is just the beginning.
This is just the tip of the iceberg.
Okay, well then stay tuned, folks, because we're going to go even deeper down the rabbit hole.
Let's do it.
Of human behavior.
I'm excited.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Thanks for having me back.
We've been talking about how all these external cues and cognitive biases
can
kind of nudge us in certain directions.
Yeah, they're always there.
Yeah, But what about the forces that are like under the surface?
Ah, yes, the deeper stuff.
Yeah, those hidden motivations that we may not even be aware of.
Right, the subconscious stuff.
It's like we don't even know why we do half the things we do.
Sometimes we don't. It's true.
Right.
We like to think that we're driven by logic and reason.
Yeah.
But in reality, our choices are often influenced by deeper, more primal instincts.
Wow, that's kind of scary.
It can be a little bit, yeah. But it's also fascinating.
Yeah, it is.
To kind of explore that side of ourselves.
Okay, so the Medium article that we're talking about today, it kind of touches on this.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to dating.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because you would think
that
love and connection.
You'd think those would be the primary factors.
Yeah, like that would be the main driving force.
For sure.
But the research suggests that there's a surprising subconscious motivator.
Okay, what's that?
And that is access to resources.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. And they did studies that showed that both men and women consistently rank material cues as a significant factor when choosing partners.
So like financial stability and things like that.
Exactly.
So it's not always just about like, love at first sight.
Right. It seems like it might be more practical than that.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it makes sense from an evolutionary standpoint.
Okay.
Right? Back in the day, access to resources was essential for survival.
So it's like ingrained in us.
In a way, yes.
To be looking for those things.
To look for partners who can provide and protect.
But it's just interesting how that still plays out.
Right. It's interesting how those ancient drives still influence us today.
Even in the modern world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not just about dating either.
Really?
I mean, think about the decisions we make in our careers, in our social circles, even the way we present ourselves online.
Okay.
Are we always driven by purely altruistic motives?
Oh, makes you wonder.
Or are there some deeper, less conscious forces at play?
Yeah. Are we really that selfless?
It's a good question to ask yourself.
Yeah, because the article was saying that sometimes we like to rationalize our actions with these noble reasons.
Right. We want to see ourselves in a positive light.
Yeah. But then deep down, maybe our motivations are tied to things like status. Wealth. Maybe a desire to be better than other people.
The competitive spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a humbling thought, isn't it?
It is.
To consider that even our most selfless acts might be influenced by a desire for recognition or, a need to belong.
Or maybe to get something in return.
It's possible.
Yeah.
And look, these drives aren't inherently bad.
Okay.
But I think being aware of them can help us make more conscious and intentional choices.
So it's like peeling back the layers of the onion.
Yes, uncovering those hidden motivations.
And then revealing these complex...
And sometimes uncomfortable.
Yeah, sometimes uncomfortable.
It's really about human nature.
Okay, so if we are constantly being influenced by all these unseen forces, both external and internal...
It's a lot to juggle.
Does that mean that free will?
Free will
Is just an illusion?
That's the big question.
Kind of blowing my mind here.
I know it's a question that philosophers have been grappling with for centuries.
And there's no easy answer.
There's not, but from a practical perspective.
Okay.
I think the key takeaway is awareness.
Okay.
The more we understand about the factors that influence our choices, the better equipped we are to make decisions that are truly aligned with our own values and goals.
So even if we're not totally in control,
right,
at least we can be aware of the forces that are pushing and pulling us.
Awareness is the first step towards taking back control.
Okay, so how do we cultivate this awareness?
Well, one of the most powerful tools is simply paying attention.
Okay.
Start noticing the things that influence your choices.
Okay.
Both big and small. What catches your eye in a store? What makes you click on certain headlines?
Right.
What triggers feelings of envy or insecurity?
Okay.
The more aware you become of these subtle influences, the better equipped you'll be to resist them.
So it's like we have to become a detective.
Yes, a detective of your own mind.
Of our own minds.
Exactly.
Wow.
It's about cultivating a sense of curiosity about your own thought processes.
Okay.
Ask yourself, why am I drawn to certain things? What are my underlying motivations?
Okay.
And by asking these questions, you can gain a much deeper understanding of the forces
that are shaping our choices.
Exactly.
It's not about eliminating these influences completely.
Right.
It's about being aware of them.
It's about understanding them.
And kind of learning how to navigate them more effectively.
Exactly. Like you're learning to surf those waves of influence.
Okay, I like that.
Instead of being completely wiped out by them.
Okay, so it's about developing a more mindful approach.
A more mindful approach to decision-making.
To decision-making.
Where we're aware of those potential biases and influences, but not necessarily controlled by them.
But what about those times when we're totally blindsided?
Oh, yeah.
By our own biases.
It happens to the best of us.
Where we're just completely unaware of
what's driving us.
Yeah, of what's going on.
Well, in those cases, I think seeking outside perspectives can be really valuable.
Okay.
Talk to trusted friends or family members or even a therapist.
Okay.
They can often see things that we're blind to.
Oh, that's true.
And help us identify patterns in our behavior that we might not recognize on our own. Like having extra set of eyes to help us spot those blind spots.
That makes sense.
And don't be afraid to challenge your own assumptions.
Oh, okay.
Just because you've always done something a certain way or always believed something to be true
doesn't mean it's right.
Doesn't mean it's the best or most rational choice.
Okay.
Be willing to question your own thinking and be open to new perspectives.
Wow, this is like a total overhaul.
It is a shifting perspective.
Of how we approach decision-making.
Yeah, it's a new way of thinking about how we make choices.
This is a lot to process.
It is a lot to take in, but it's an incredibly rewarding journey.
Really?
Yes, the more we understand about the forces that shape our choices, the more empowered we become to live lives that are authentic, fulfilling and aligned with our values.
So we're going from like autopilot
to conscious pilot.
To being the conscious pilot of our lives.
Exactly. You're taking the controls and steering your own course.
That's a great analogy.
Thank you.
So where do we go from here?
Well, I think the next step is to start putting this knowledge into practice.
Okay.
Think about a recent decision you've made, big or small.
Okay.
Was it truly your choice? Or were you influenced by something you weren't even aware of?
Oh, that's a really good question.
It is. It's something to ponder.
Yeah, that's something for our listeners to think about.
Absolutely.
But before we send everyone off on that little introspective journey, let's do a quick recap.
Yeah, let's recap.
Of some of the key takeaways from today's deep dive.
All right, so we've learned that our choices are constantly being shaped by this complex web of unseen forces.
Yeah.
From the music playing in the background to the biases lurking in our own minds.
It's everywhere.
It really is. But the good news is that by becoming aware of these influences, we can start to make more conscious and intentional choices.
So awareness is key.
Awareness is key, exactly. And it's about recognizing that we're not always in control, but we can strive to become more aware and empowered decision makers.
I like that.
Right.
So it's like we've been handed this secret decoder ring for understanding our own behavior.
You got it.
And with that knowledge, we can start to make choices that are actually in line with our values and goals.
Absolutely. Choices that are truly our own.
Wow, this has been really eye-opening.
It's been a great discussion.
Yeah, it really makes you realize how much is going on beneath the surface of all of our choices.
It's amazing how much we're influenced by things we're not even aware of.
And it's amazing that we can even start to understand these forces at play in our own minds.
That's empowering, isn't it?
It is. It is very empowering.
To start to peel back those layers and see what's really going on.
Exactly.
It makes you wonder if we could become aware of all the unseen forces that shape our choices.
Yeah.
What kind of decisions would we make?
Oh, that's a great question.
It is something to think about.
And that's a question that we'll leave our listeners to ponder.
Yes, ponder that one, folks.
All right, well, that brings this deep dive to a close.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
As we explore this fascinating world.
The mysterious world of the human mind.
Of unseen forces. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been on quite the journey, haven't we?
We have. We've gone deep down the rabbit hole.
Uncovering all these unseen forces that shape the choices we make.
It can feel a little overwhelming.
It really can. It's like, we think we're in control.
Yeah, but then we realize how much we're being influenced by all these
external factors and these internal biases.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder.
It does.
If free will is even real.
Is it all an illusion?
That's the big question, right?
Yeah, like if we're so susceptible to manipulation, can we really say that we're making our own choices?
It's a tough one. And it's something that, philosophers have debated for centuries.
I don't think we're going to solve it today.
Probably not. But what's interesting is that even the belief in free will, whether it's real or an illusion, can have a powerful impact on our behavior.
So you're saying even if it's a placebo effect, just believing that we have control
can lead to better outcomes.
Can actually change things.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, people who believe they have agency in their lives tend to be happier, healthier, and more successful.
That's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It really is. When we believe we have control, we're more likely to take action, set goals, and actually achieve those goals.
And persevere through challenges.
Wow.
So it's a powerful belief to have.
But how do we cultivate that belief?
Yeah.
When we've just spent all this time talking about how easily swayed our choices are.
Yeah, it's a process. It's about becoming more aware of our own thought patterns. Recognizing our biases and actively challenging them.
And the article that we've been talking about, it offers some good tips.
It does. Yeah, there are some practical strategies.
For kind of dealing with all of this.
Yeah, for navigating this complex landscape.
Like stepping back in those anchor points.
Don't get too caught up in that first piece of information.
Exactly.
Tune out the noise. Resist those sunk cost fallacies.
Right, where we're like hanging on to bad decisions.
Exactly.
Just because we've already put so much into it.
We've all been there.
Okay, and then what was the other one?
Oh, and grounding ourselves in objective truths.
Objective truths.
Looking beyond those sensationalized stories.
Yeah, because those can really skew our perception of risk.
Absolutely. They can make us more afraid than we need to be.
Right, and then also like really examining our motivations.
Yeah. Why are we doing what we're doing?
Are we making choices based on our values?
Or are we being swayed by external pressures?
Or to those subconscious desires?
Right, those deeper motivations.
That we talked about.
It's important to ask ourselves those tough questions.
So it's almost like we have to develop this mental filter.
I love that analogy.
To sift through all the information.
All noise.
That we're bombarded with.
And find the signal.
It's a lot of work.
It is, but it's worth it.
Okay.
Because it's about becoming more discerning consumers. Of information, both internally and externally.
So, questioning our assumptions.
Yes, always question your assumptions.
Seeking out different perspectives.
And being open to changing our minds.
When we're presented with new evidence.
It's about being flexible.
Wow. This is like a whole new way
it is.
Of approaching decision-making.
It's a continuous process of self-reflection and refinement.
It's not a one-time thing.
No, it's an ongoing journey.
Wow.
And it's not about achieving some perfect state of free will, but rather embracing the complexity of human decision-making.
We're not robots.
We're not. We're complex creatures.
And striving to make choices that are truly aligned with our values.
And our goals.
This has been so eye-opening.
I'm glad to hear that.
It really makes you realize how much is going on beneath the surface.
It's a lot more than we realize, but it's also empowering. Because once you start to see those unseen forces, you can begin to understand how they influence you.
It's like we've been given this secret decoder ring.
Exactly.
For understanding our own behavior.
Yeah.
And with that knowledge, we can start to make choices that are truly our own.
Even if we can never fully escape the influence of those unseen forces.
So as we wrap up, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from today's deep dive?
I would say simply this. Pay attention.
Pay attention.
The next time you're faced with a decision, big or small, take a moment to pause and reflect. Ask yourself, what's really influencing my choice here?
Wow.
You might be surprised by what you discover.
That is a great takeaway.
Thank you.
And with that, we'll bring this deep dive to a close.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for joining us.
As we explore the fascinating and sometimes unsettling world of unseen forces.
And we'll see you next time for another deep dive.